where do you guys believe go? You guys think they're A plus tier or S tier? What do you guys think? I'm asking chat. I'm gonna... What the fuck happened? What the fuck happened? Bro, what did I do? Bro, what? If I do this, I close my window? What? What? You see that? I just did this. And I closed it. You guys want to see what's for breakfast? Or lunch? Look at that. Now, I do promise that's not a shit. It's one pancake. With a little bit of chocolate on top, okay? It's not a shit. Bro, it's pancake with chocolate. What do you mean? Yo. Okay. The chocolate is a very healthy version of a regular chocolate. It's not a... Bro, this doesn't look like shit. No way. I mean... It's alright. Listen, I wanted to make a healthier version of chocolate. Okay? It didn't work, but I'm still hungry, okay? It tastes a bit... What is the word in English? A bit funky. Alright, listen. For how much money would you take a bite of that? Look at that. How much money do you guys for a small bite of that shit? How much money? 50 bucks? Hey, any takers? Delicious. What's up, YouTube? Welcome to update number 2 for season 2 Mythic Plus tier list. Once again, ranking every single spec and cluster in the game. Weekly performance and how they look like on PTR for patch 12.1. To keep in mind, there's a lot of weeks of tuning. Likely 4 more weeks, so things will change. Whatever is good right now might not good in the future, and vice versa. So don't doom. It's pretty much how your spec plays right now. Anyway, as always, if you like to keep up with the most up-to-date information, make sure to follow, and I'll see you next Sunday. Subtlety Rogue will remain on a C tier. There's been no changes, no attempt changes done on behalf of Subtlety Rogue to become better. Their overall performance right now is quite literally shit. Okay, that's pretty much it. Sure, your sustained damage, they tried to make it better, but they took away some of your burst, but overall numbers just not doing well. Outside of cooldowns, your damage is equivalent to a Protection Paladin. Just like the pancake, yes. Subtlety Rogue needs some love, and needs some love urgently. Unfortunate for many of you, Augmentation Evoker. Augmentation Evoker received a substantial nerf going to patch 12.1, especially on behalf of Scale Commander, which means your performance in Mythic Plus and also in Raid will go down, which translates to your phase of the dominance slowly ending, which also means a lot of other specs that have Bloodlust can inherently get into the meta, like mages, like shamans, and hunters. On and on. I do believe Augmentation is likely gonna get buffed because the excessive amount of nerfs on Scale Commander are pretty much making the Evoker a bit dead. They nerf the duplicates because of CDR, bombardments, and how it indicates. That also nerfed the fun, in my opinion. It's less fun than before, and overall, it looks to be a rather underperforming spec as of the moment right now. Will that change in the future? I don't know. But the way I'm looking at it right now, it ain't looking good. Devastation Evoker, which actually hasn't seen any meaningful changes for the past couple of weeks. Well, they've tried to make some of them, but and quite honestly, Dev is also quite shit. It is one of the most ignored specs so far onto the Mythic Plus, and in Raid, and their current performance outside of major cooldowns is just pretty bad. Jokes aside, Scale Commander Devastation Evoker likely the worst spec to play Mythic Plus, or in general to play. I think it is horrendous. Actually, I'm not sure what's worse, to play Scale Commander, Death Evoker, or play Hunter. Both are frustrating to play and boring, and they have to do something about it. Scale Commander, you fly all the time, you do Z-Dam. At least Flame Shaper does some kind of a damage, but during a short windows of time. Other than that, it still underperforms outside of, you know, your major cooldowns. Windwalker Monk. Windwalker Monk actually doesn't do that bad whenever you don't pull big. Unironically, I did quite well performance-wise when I played within the like moderate amount of pulls. But the moment my team started to pull bigger, I fell behind. So once again, the same feedback I presented last week on behalf of Windwalker Monks. During series, great. Outside of it, it's quite poor. However, because you have a short amount of cooldowns, which again, every single Zenith charge is like a minute, seeded, if you do play Shadow Pan, what I propose here is a flat auto buff on Windwalker Monk, or make Spinning Crane Kick do more damage, so the mass AoE here gets to be better. That's what I would propose. Or maybe buff Jade Ignition plus auto buffs as well. That might work. Or maybe buff the Capstones, which are also pretty shit. That might work. I don't know. Just anything from Monks I will be welcoming so far. And that's gonna be Outlaw Rogue. Now, Outlaw Rogue has received actually quite good changes going forward to Midnight Season 2. Okay? Now, they fixed the energy issues, they fixed the pulling issues, they did take away some of your burst damage from Deathmark and Kingsbane, they gave you more sustain. Overall damage looks to be the only problem so far. I feel like one tuning away and Outlaw Rogue will become really good. I swear. One tuning away and Outlaw Rogue will become really good. This spec also did a lot better when I tested it on high level keys compared to like moderate amount of keys. So if you are still pushing as a rogue player in the future, and you want to opt in playing Outlaw Rogue, you're gonna do still fine. But for most of you, Outlaw Rogue would be a horrible choice. For most of you, so far into the PTR testing. Again, 4 weeks to go, everything can change. So take it with a big grain of salt. So we have Blood DK here, and we have Guardian Druid on B+ tier. Now, the reason why I shifted those two specs from B+ to B is because the reason why Guardian was placed in a B tier is because their damage. The damage was an issue. Here's the problem though. Even though Blood DK will do better damage most of the time, there comes a point where Blood DK just gets to be nuked. Like, you do very well within a moderate amount of keys, like mid-ish level, low level keys, but the higher you go, there comes a point where you just die. As simple as it is, you just die into a global. So that issue is still haunting Blood Death Knight. And I believe unless they actually introduce any meaningful passive DRs to Blood DK, they will continue to do that. Great for weekly keys, but the moment you start to push with them, it becomes harder. It becomes significantly harder for you. Unless you like the pain of playing Blood DK, go for it. I still think if you are playing average keys, though, Blood DK is just fine. For sure. Holy Priest also got promoted from C tier to B tier. The reason why that is because they got buffed. Better mana management as well, which obviously targets exactly what they needed, and more healing, including some of the healing coming from the tier set as well. At least the interaction between it. So overall, I would say one idea better than before. There's still a lot of things I would like them to get changed on Holy Priest, but buff by buff going up. We'll see how they're gonna end up at the end. Okay. Speaking about tanks, I wanna finish the B tier with the tanks. Brewmaster is the spec I have here, also in a B+ tier. The reason why Brew hasn't changed so far is because they got no changes. I think you are currently an average tank, which are not doing bad, not doing well. Durability wise, likely the only problem that I have so far for them. Yeah. If you're playing physical comps as Brewmaster Monk, like with warriors, like for example, Resto Shaman, warriors, you know, rogues and hunters, then I think it can go to A tier, right? But current performers, I think more like B+, more like Guardian level-ish. Definitely worse than Paladins, definitely worse than Protection Warriors. yeah, I think just more like average performer so far. Brew might be one of the better early season picks due to their massive inbuilt defenses via stagger, but their damage will just be lower, I guess. Sure, but I also think you do get higher stagger quite often. So I don't know about that one, you know. It's Havoc DH. Havoc DH received yet another nerf this week around for Inertia. Inertia damage increase got nerfed, and they also get 1 extra second longer buff from the Inertia itself. Which means, once again, performance for both AoE and ST goes down. And when your performance goes down and the other specs get buffed, pretty much means you are a lot less likely to be picked up, and also your value gets lower. Especially here when Devourer is already doing better than you are, it just to me seems like there is no place for Havoc. So far, there is just no place for Havocs. One way to fix this is just by getting them more damage. I mean, in first place, why do you even nerf them? There's like often times where a change to a spec would make sense, and I can see it. I can see the future of why they've done that, but I don't see a clear path of why they nerfed Havoc twice. Now, the only theory of mine here is that they nerf Havoc twice because they are preparing something bigger in the upcoming weeks. That might be a theory. I don't know. But anything else outside of this makes little to no sense to me. That's what I think about Havoc so far. Unfortunately, yet another hit for them. Is that gonna be the end of them? I don't know. I don't think so. But it's impactful. They are just now an average spec. The best rogue spec, Outlaw. Unfortunately, for every single Outlaw player out there, even though Outlaw play is actually quite fun, and the rotation is very similar to what you can expect from last season, I think right now you are an average performer. However, even though you're an average performer, Outlaw has something most specs don't have. A full physical damage profile. Which means the moment you get buffed by Warrior, and by Monk, and by Shaman, I think this spec can go in up to the A+ tier. I kid you not. So if you're an Outlaw player for Mythic Plus, I would not doom yet. I would actually be somewhat okay. You know, for raiding obviously sucks, but for Mythic Plus, I would not exclude Outlaw at all. I think it's still gonna be quite good. That's only if you play physical comp though. If you're not playing that comp, you can forget about a spec. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, this week they didn't change anything, but last week they buffed the killing spree a bit and made it shorter during cities, which, you know, which you can add 1 extra global, I guess. Fury Warrior. It is a young man spec, chat, okay? Now, Fury Warrior has seen pretty much 0 changes for the past couple weeks. And why do I think Fury is B+ tier? It's pretty evident. I think their single target, for the most part, is doing actually quite well. So if you're planning to rate as Fury Warrior, you're gonna do fine. The issue with Fury Warrior is mass AoE. Your mass AoE is not doing well, okay? The moment they get to buff the mass AoE, Rampaging Ruin, uncapping some spells to 8 targets, I don't give a shit what, that is the moment where Fury is gonna be insane, okay? Until then, there is no incentive to play Fury Warrior when ARMS is so dominant. Think about that. Why would you play Fury when ARMS is so much better in everything? In everything. Funnel, ST, and AoE. Okay, the ST part might be like a double question mark, okay? But like, that's like going to the car salon and the guy is like, you know what? I have 2 gifts for you. I want to gift you a free Lambo, or I can gift you a free Ford Fiesta. And you're like, wait a second, bro. I want to get a Ford Fiesta. And you just leave the Lambo in a car, in a showroom, and you just leave. You know? That's kind of the feeling of playing Fury over ARMS. It just makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. You are better off at playing ARMS. Okay. Or listen, you don't have to drive the Lambo. You just get it, sell it, and that's it. Okay. Get it, sell it, and that's it. Fire Mage. Now, hold the fuck up. Let me explain why do I think Fire Mage goes in a B+ tier. Okay. First of all, if you are playing Fire Mage or high level keys, I sincerely believe the performance of Fire Mage is definitely better the moment you climb higher. Even outside of combustion, spamming Pyroclast and Fire Flame Strikes, you still do decent AoE. Here's my issue with Fire Mage, and why do I think it's an average performer. Outside of combustion, low damage, which means every second pack, when you don't have no combustion, you're gonna do 0. Flame Strike build means you have 0 prio. You are full path spec. Full path spec, 0 prio, and the ST is also kinda that's it. And also, on top of this, Arcane is much better than you, and much tankier than you. And once again, we get to the same showroom. Lambo against Ford Fiesta. It makes no sense. I give you other examples if you don't like Lambos. I mean, there's many things I can give you examples, you know? But so far, Fire Mage is definitely a spec that I expect a little bit of more ST adjustments. Okay? Other than that, if you are playing high level keys, I would say at least A tier. At least A tier. I mean, I've played with the best Fire Mage in the world. At least the best Chinese Fire Mage in the world. Kyungzin good. And he was doing the damage of my Survival Hunter. You know? Equal, same gear, same stats, nobody died. And also magical combo. So that's all I can say about Fire Mage. Resto, Druid, and Petko Evoker. For the people that actually haven't seen last tier list and last update, I think Petko Evoker got another nerf. They're now going from A tier to B+ tier, Mythic+. And the Restoration Druid got a small buff. Hence why they are going now to the B+ tier. A Restoration Druid just lacks output. That is the only reason why you are placed in a B+ tier. Is because your toolkit is great, utility is good, but the output, both HPS and DPS, is not as well. Especially compared to like Mistweaver Monk, Druid is just miles behind. What could they do to make Druid better? Just buffs. Give them more HPS, they'll become better. That's about it. Petko Evoker, on the contrary, once again, even though the design of Petko Evoker is not really accommodating for Mythic+, I think you're still gonna do fine, especially given the fact your performance purely from HPS and DPS quite well. The problem is, Evokers have no unique buff, so it just makes no sense to bring Petko Evoker into Mythic+, if you can bring another healer that can do similar DPS, similar HPS, and have unique utility for the party. Yeah, that's all. I think Holy Paladin definitely deserves the A tier performance, the 4th best healer right now. It could be even better than A tier. I think the attempt of buffing the no Holy Shock build hasn't really changed that. You are still playing no Holy Shock build, which pretty much means relying on casting spells to actively heal targets. It does sound weird, but once you get to see it in action, you can see how powerful single target / prior target healing is. The mass healing is a problem so far for Holy Paladin, like an AoE healing. But if you play your cards well, you're gonna be able to heal most of the encounters effortlessly. Also, not to mention, Holy Paladin has one of the strongest, in my opinion, utility for Mythic+, especially party-wise stuff to stop, for example, targets, let's say Binding Light and Hodge. You can do, Blessing and Sacrifice to your teammates, pretty short one. You can freedom them, remove poisons, remove diseases, has immunity, lay on hands, and so many tools to help your team survive. Aura Mastery as well, Devotion Hour permanently 3% DR, and this list goes on and on and on. Which I think it's a very strong candidate so far. Unfortunately, not to the level of, in my opinion, Mistweaver Monk. That's about him. Demonology Warlock goes to the A tier. Last week, they were on the A tier again. This week, they still remain to the A tier because I sincerely believe their damage output is A tier worthy, which means above average, but still a lot of design issues that I hope to get targeted in the future. What I mean by this is they've seen no changes no rotational changes, and the tier set is also pretty passive. If you guys haven't seen the tier set, it pretty much interacts with Implosion and Wild Imps. Completely passive, non-gameplay changing tier set, which I'm not a fan of. So what could be changed here for Demonology to become better? There's certain things. For example, make it more interactive, change the build, maybe make it that your demonic cores do more damage once you demon bolt. I don't know, some shit. Maybe your pet does insane damage. I don't know, add something nice and unique. So far, Demo hasn't seen anything. The ST is actually pretty decent, good cleave, nice sustained damage. Yeah, I mean, not a bad pickup, but I would say if you're seriously pushing keys, I just wouldn't consider it. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna choose something else, personally. Pharaoh. El Feralito. Now, why did I change my mind about Pharaoh Druid? So Pharaoh Druid was B+ tier last week, and now it's 8 tier. Now, it did climb 4 spots up, and the reason why Pharaoh did that is because most of the other spec haven't really seen any changes. And every single time that I've tested Pharaoh, and I had a warrior and a monk with me, I was doing quite well. Okay. It did again. Once I did the research on Warcraft logs, I was looking at other pharaohs as well, playing with different comps, high level keys on 80s, 90s, etc. Their performance was equal to most of the specs located into the 8th tier. So based on that and based on my own personal testing, even today we played pharaoh, I think an 8th tier performer is likely more warranted. Do keep in mind, I still believe their performance between 3 to 5 targets sucks. They should buff Rake. And most importantly, a spec that it can only be played in a physical comp. Other than that, I have no issues with pharaohs. Okay. Extremely good sustained damage, by the way, in mass AoE. Even with Tiger's Fury and no other cooldown, you're still gonna do quite good damage, which I am a fan of. But Pharaoh Druid struggles one thing. Pharaoh Druid struggles with how can I say? I mean, I did say it before many times. It's kind of the Megan Fox effect, which again, it impacts Pharaoh more than any other spec right now, simply due to balance Druid. But that's gonna be a conversation I'll speak about a bit later once we get to the balance Druid, because I do believe that BM is the worst hunter spec that I've tested, but I believe all of the hunter specs are very close in performance, and I will explain why do I think that is the case. First, sustained damage with BM Hunter is actually not so bad. The single target is likely going to be the biggest advantage you can get for Beastmaster Hunter. However, survival is very similar to the performance of BM Hunter, but it's a lot more explosive. A lot more bursty. BM is more like catching up to the others because your major cooldowns, Bestial Rat every 30 seconds, does quite impact your damage profile, right? With Stampede and getting more barb shots and getting more tier sets and yada yada yada. So if the pack lasts long enough, then I think BM might overtake Survival at some point. The problem is Survival, which I think is a spec that comes very close to BM Hunter, is that they do have several bug talents which give them more damage than intended. If you guys haven't seen it, Survival got a complete 360 rework, actually 180 rework, whatever. And now they do a more damage with their wildfire bombs than before. Now previously, last couple weeks, you were playing a Raptor Strike focus build. Right now you are switching that and you're playing bomb based build and boomstick based build, which means you only really cast a Raptor Strike and a Raptor Swipe on a completely whenever you have nothing else, as a filler pretty much. Now, because some of your talents are currently doing more damage than intended, I think BM is worse. The moment they get to fix those talents, I believe it's the Bombardier talent specifically here referencing, I think the performance would drop lower, unless they compensate buffs on Survival. Both specs do pretty good single target, by the way. I was quite impressed with the Survival single target and also Beastmaster ST. So both specs do good single target. Survival is more bursty than Beastmaster Hunter, but if the pack lasts long enough, BM can overtake. And one more point of advice for Beastmaster Hunters, if they get to buff anything, because right now they nerf everything, they nerf Cobra Shot, they nerf Q Command, they nerf Dire Beast, they nerf Q Command as well. So if they get to buff any other spell, Beast Mastery Hunter might overtake. Like if you buff Barb Shot, for example, you can play Master Handler and start spreading Barb Shots. Right now, I spread 3 Barb Shots most of the time for a bit more damage, sometimes even 4, it all depends. But if they buff that, that would make it more interesting. If they buff Q Command, that's going to make it also more interesting, right? Or if they, for example, just decide to buff Dire Beast to do a lot more damage, then we can go full pet build, which also is going to be fine. Right now, they didn't do shit. They haven't done shit. Neither of those things neither of those things have been implemented so far. So we are stuck at pretty much in a massive limbo. You know, you're stuck in a limbo which you just don't know where you belong in a sense. So yeah, that's about Hunter so far into the 8th tier. And yes, I believe Hunter right now is the best Hunter spec, but we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Unholy DK. Unholy DK. Now, what do we think about that spec, chat? First of all, Unholy DK is coming out of a massive nerfs implemented to them 12 days ago. 12 days ago, they decided the life of Unholy DK matters not, and they nerfed that spec down to oblivion. Now, ever since then, they have bounced back a little bit. I can't say they haven't, they did. But the huge amount of nerfs are making your sustained damage the biggest issue so far. I think that mass AoE is still very good. You have nice execute damage too. I think that your single target is also quite decent. But anytime you don't have your army, even during DT, it's just not looking good. So Unholy DK unfortunately is still doing above average, but in most of the aspects you are going to be dominated by a Frost DK. So my question remains, why would you play Unholy if you can go Frost? Frost right now is definitely the better spec, right? However, I want you to remember this. Unholy DK and the general Frost DK are considered the tankiest spec in a game, which means even if you are doing less damage than some of the specs in A tier, you might be picked up to play into the S tier comp. I'm not even kidding. Even if you don't do the best, if you do like, let's say 10% less damage than the rest, but you never die, you might still be invited to meta comps just because of this. Grips, never dying, and also short interrupts. So don't make it twisted. Unholy is very far from being dead, and neither is Frost DK. That's all I'm gonna say, and I say no more. I hope you guys understand that. Affliction Lock. Now, Affliction Lock has several issues. First of all, Affliction AoE damage is A+ to S tier at the minimum A+ tier AoE performance for them. Is the playstyle degenerate? It is. Agony, seed, sure. The biggest issue for Affliction Warlock is their single target. The moment they buff the single target, this spec becomes A+ tier automatically. No questions asked. That is the biggest issue. If you have funnel, then Affli is A+ tier. If you don't have funnel, then Affli is A tier. And here's the twist. Even if you are doing very well, even if you do the damage of the class on S tier, that doesn't matter. Your utility is gonna gatekeep you away from being to the S tier. And the only way for any Warlock spec, including Demo, including Destro and Affli, is for them to be turbo broken. If you are turbo broken, then you might be able to appear onto the S tier. If you're not, A to A+ is the most you'll be getting at all. At least that's what I believe. Sincerely believe that. And yes, Affli gameplay is a little bit boring. I think Retribution Paladin is one of the best specs into the A tier. Are very close to get to the A+. If you do play hybrid comps, you're probably A+ at least. Minimum. If you play hybrid comps with warriors, etc., A+ at least. So, which build did I test on Retribution Paladin? It is gonna be the non-Templar builds. Okay? Every single build that did not play Templar, it performed a lot better. Now, I did steal the Chinese build on the Red Paladin. Yes, it is not build that I've cooked. I stole it shamelessly from China. I admit it. I'm a shameful person. And I think, for the most part, the Chinese build was doing absolutely insane. Okay? Absolutely insane. I'm gonna be showing you the Retribution Paladin a bit later to show you. But for the most part, I was doing above average damage. Even at some point, was doing very well. Without warrior buff, without shamans, you know, pure natty. Okay. Does the build require you to have Riot Vanguard installed on your PC? No, it doesn't. Condolences is not the word you were looking for there. Oh, I mean, it kind of is, because I did tell them last week that Paladin is kind of shit. Yeah. I mean, I did flame the Paladins last week, so I wanted to apologize for flaming them, you know. I did tell them that they kind of suck, but jokes on me. I was the one being bad at Paladin, okay? And before people get confused, every single week we are gonna be discovering new builds, more testing, more data, you know, mashing stuff. So you know, even if your spec is placed into the B+ or B tier or A tier, there might be some better build out there that does well, okay? Because there are no sims for most classes. There are no talents that are the best so far. It's just purely gamba. You just test stuff. You know, you go in, you pull down your pants, you log into PTR, and you start smacking, okay? Shit works, shit doesn't work. You check other people what they play, check logs, copy it, try it yourself. It doesn't work, you know? That's all I'm gonna say about Red Paladins. I think you clap. I think you clap cheeks, okay? Anyway, the only tank that goes to the A tier is gonna be Vengeance DH. Vengeance was A tier last week. It didn't change anything, by the way. I think the biggest issue of Vengeance is just purely defensive value. Frost's damage profile is good, utility is good, mob control is good. It just feels like sometimes you are struggling to live. If there is no kiting, you might die. If there is and you know what to do, then I think more like A tier so far. I do think you are definitely worse than Paladins. And Warrior. Frost Mage, another spec that I forgot to rank. I'd like to apologize. I think Frost Mage is still unsure yet. The reason why it's unsure yet is because I could not find a working build on Frost Mage. Now, I've seen Frost do very good numbers in raid. I did raid this week and I've seen them do very well in the raid progression fights. Unfortunately, the build that they were playing wasn't really good for Mythic Plus, so every single test that I've conducted so far on Frost is just not doing well. Now, most of the Frost gamers that I spoke to did tell me that Frost performs like lower than Arcane, but should be slightly better than Fire. So if I'm going by what they told me, that it performs better than Fire, but worse than Arcane, it might be anywhere from B+ to S tier. It's definitely not dog shit, but it's not great either. You know, maybe like either average or above average performer, Frost that is. But so far, until I get more data, I'm gonna be resisting to comment, put it this way. Protection Paladin so far, even after the nerfs, has been quite well. So I still believe they are doing an exceptional job. I rank them S tier. Still great damage profile, quite tanky too, very nice burst, amazing utility, good sustain, and for the most part, utility that fits the next season. They have poison spells, they've got freedoms, which are very useful, by the way, for the most part, and immunity. If worse come to worse, they slap the bubble and that's it. they're chilling. So if you are expecting non-paladin meta, I think paladin is there. Okay. And yeah, as you guys have guessed, Protection Warrior is obviously worse than paladin, so naturally gets ranked into the A tier. That's about it. I think they do solid, both defensively and offensively, and can be played in a hybrid comps, including casters plus melees. I think they're solid. Not as good as Paladin, they're miles behind Paladin, but if Paladin gets that nerf, you could see Vengeance or Prot Warrior going up. That all depends if they get buffed. We'll see. Time's gonna tell. And Destrolog. I think Destrolog is probably the best Warlock spec in a mass AoE, and I think it's quite evident whenever you play on the highest or the highest level keys, where even if you don't have major cooldowns, you still do quite well. I think Destrolog lacks the prior target damage for the most part. I think their single target should be better than Affliction on ST, which I believe is the only reason why I'm putting Destro there. Massively claps big time, ST doing average, prior damage non-existent. The moment they fix and buff the single target of Affliction Warlock, Destro goes to A tier. A tier after goes A+. Until then, I'm gonna say Destro goes to the A+ tier, but there's a lot of specs in front of you. I could see it being niche pickup in Mass AoE where you can just gap everybody else. I've tried Hellcaller, I've tried Diabolist. For me, Diabolists have better ST for the most part. I did better at Diabolist, at least personally. Both have insane AoE damage. Enhanced Shaman goes right to the A+ tier. I think Enhanced so far, even though it hasn't seen much changes last couple of weeks, their current performance both on single target and AoE is absolutely great. One of the issues I'm having with Enhanced Shaman is their sustained damage. Now, during sustained damage, if you don't proc Doom Winds, you are gonna be doing significant less damage than anytime you get the proc, which for me leaves to be a little bit RNG. However, you cannot deny it. Enhanced Shaman has one of the strongest utilities in Mythic Plus, especially if you combine the Disease Dispel, the Poison Dispel, the Bloodlust as well, Stun, and also slow removal. There's so many tools, and you're so useful as a team member for Mythic Plus that I believe even if your damage is not A+ compatible, I think you still might be picked up for BL and everything else that you can provide. And Sky Fury, don't forget Sky Fury, which is huge. But I believe Mistweaver Monk to be the best healer in the game. They nerfed it this week by a few percentages. They buffed Mastery, they out nerf every single healing spell, but I still believe they are first by far. Still going strong even after a very evidently strong tier coming out from season 1. I think they're going to continue to do great next season unless they get to be nerfed more. And that leaves us with Discipline Priest and the Resto Shaman. I think right now, after a second round of nerfs to Disc Priest, I think now they are pretty much in the same boat as Resto Shamans. I think Disc Priest has infinitely better single target than Restoration Shaman. However, Restoration Shaman fits physical comps, which means every single time you get a physical comp, Shaman is going to be the default healer. And you are left to compete with Mistweaver Monk, which right now does better than you in pure HPS profile. Now the DPS part, Monk can do better AoE, this can do better single target. This does way better there. Any other case, Monk wins. Mana issues. I know people talk about it before, I speak again. I think mana issues for Oracle as Disc Priest are quite evident. Will they get fixed in the future? I don't know. I hope so. If they don't get fixed in the future, it is what it is. For the most part, it ain't that bad. I mean, you can work around it. Maybe innervates here and there, it can help you. Okay, that's all about this priest. You're coming out of a second round of nerfs. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. I rank Hunter as the best hunter spec into the A+ tier, going from B+ to A+. Now, why do I think Hunter's A+ tier is pretty much The only reason why you're here is because your multi-shot got overbuffed, and now you're spamming multi-shot like a small little chimp. Even if you get to have aim shots ready, if you have precise shots, you press multi-shot. You press multi-shot even on single target, depending on the setup you have. Now, why do I think utility is dog shit on Hunter? The only relevant utility is just BL. BL and Hunter's macro bosses, that's it. Everything else is useless. I'm just gonna tell you, Sky Fury of Shaman is more worth than the entire toolkit of Hunter. Just a Sky Fury. Let alone, for example, having anything else. That's how you play MM anyway, though. You press the precise shot spender over aim shot. Whenever you have trick shot, any aim shot ready, you press aim shot. The problem is they buffed multi-shot so much that your precise shots multi-shots do insane damage. So you actually want to ignore that and get on MM and get on hunters and just press multi-shot. Multi-shot is a filler to just give you trick shots, which right now accounts for roughly 1/3 of your damage. Okay. Now I think multi-shot will get a massive, huge nerf, and they might do a compensation buff to aim shot. Despite that, I think aim shot should get buffed, and I think aim shot should get fixed. Maybe a shorter cast, maybe castable while moving. But until multi-shot gets to be nerfed, I think the current performance of MM Hunter is quite good. The best melee in the current patch, I think, goes to this tier. Arrows Warrior is absolutely fucking turbo blasting, both on AoE and on ST and sustain damage and on funnel, and also Colossus Arrows is actually quite tanky too. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Arrows Warrior have corrupted me. They actually do quite well right now. Kidding not. They be clapping, dude. And I'm talking about Arrows Warrior without being in a physical comp. Okay. Now, if you put Arrows Warrior with a brew buff, with a shaman, with a monk, with a druid buff as well, Arrows Warrior will get AoE nerf. I guarantee you that. They will nerf Arrows Warrior. I am so confident. I'm very confident. They are gonna clap that booty real good. Question is when they're gonna nerf it. That's the question. When will they nerf it? I think any shaman so far has been performing really well for the most part on the PTR. They have very good sustain damage, insane utility, very good burst. Unfortunately, they cannot compete onto the overall damage with the S tier specs. Hence why I'm putting it to A+ tier. I think Ellie is quite solid, just not good enough to be S tier. The utility is good, the burst is good, it just lacks a little bit of gas. A little bit of gas to be S. Now I would say probably like A+. And speaking about A+, I forgot to talk about the biggest A+ tier so far. It's Frost Decay, chat. I think Frost Decay is doing quite well. I forgot to mention it earlier, but even after the biggest nerf that they've received, I think you are still considered the second best melee in the game. Very strong burst profile, even decent sustain, grips are still useful, and you're tanky as fuck. That's all you're gonna need. And once again, just like Unholy, even if Frost Decay doesn't do the best damage, they might be picked up solely because they do so much damage during burst and also during important dangerous moments. You're just immune to die in a sense. AMS, death strikes if you have to, Iceborne Fortitude, in MZs, and Lichborn here and there, and they have so many ways to stay alive. Also passively tanky too as well, don't forget that. So DK, even though the damage can be even A tier, the whole package including the durability should be S tier for the most part. That's about it. S tier. That's only if you actually do need another physical damage dealer, because you know what is really strong, and you know they might benefit being like maybe like DK, Warrior, Ellie, or Enhance could do really well. Maybe like kind of a hybrid comp, you know, with Paladin and Mistweaver. Sounds pretty good, but we know. Balance Druid. Let's talk about Balance Druid. Now, Balance Druid, as I already told you guys, it does a lot better than what a lot of people could have expected from Balance. I believe they have one of the strongest AoE profiles in the game. The output there is absolutely crazy. Hence why, with all of the utility and all of the damage, even when ST is good, I think Balance is S tier. That's it. Balance is most definitely a spec I have no doubt in my mind that will get AoE nerfs. On God, Balance will get AoE nerfs. So if you are a Balance Druid main, you're gonna get clapped. That's it. You're getting clapped. The question is when, not if. End of the story. Speaking about Devourer DH, I think Devourer DH is doing also quite well. The no collapsing starter build is doing very good. Your single target damage is considered one of the highest so far across all the specs, which again is a massive compliment. Sustain looking good. Burst not so great, I would say, because if you have minor cooldowns all the time, I don't think your burst is as good. But at least you get your major cooldowns very often, so that's fine. Utility is the only intention of putting Devourer into the A+ tier, because again, utility plus damage makes the spec become insane. So if there is a physical comp meta, if you're gonna play Protection Paladin with, for example, Disc Priest or Mistweaver Monk, you play Balance, you can play Ellie, and last one can be Devourer to buff the whole team, or you can play Mage, you know, or you can play Devourer, Mage, Balance, or you can play Death Knight, Balance, and Devourer. You know, you can cycle some classes out and in, but I think Devourer is quite strong. I think collapsing starter builds will probably gonna get buffed, which means you might get switched back to the old build. We'll see. Time's gonna tell. And last but not least, the final two specs, Shadow Priest and Arcane Mage. I think Shadow Priest is doing actually quite well so far onto the PTR. I think they're considered one of the strongest ranges. You can play Invoke Nightmare build for the dungeons where they don't play big, and whenever you play large packs, especially when they die quick enough, you can also play Misery. Shadow Priest is definitely one of the most fun specs that I've tried so far on PTR, and I think they are gonna continue to dominate into the next season unless they get changed, and they might. And Arcane Mage, S tier. I think that wasn't surprising. Arcane is currently doing exceptionally well, both in AoE, sustain, and also the burst damage. They do fantastic. Utility is getting better, and also don't forget, Arcane is now super defensively stacked, which means you are considered one of the most durable range DPS options so far onto the PTR. That's the whole update number 2. Today is the 19th of July. There are gonna be 2 or 3 more updates depending on when the season starts. Every single week they post changes. After we test the changes, we adjust the rankings. Thank you for watching.